Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast.
Today we're looking at Bullish. The big question is it a good time to buy now?
We want to hear from you. Subscribe, like, and comment to support the show. And if there's a specific company you want us to look into, leave it in the comments below.
So let's get into the analysis. We've looked through, well, quite a stack of recent reports, analyst notes, all focused on Bullish.
Okay.
And the overall vibe, the rating we're seeing pretty consistently is quite high, like an 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. That's strong.
It is. It suggests we're at a real inflection point. And it seems to be mostly driven by this pretty dramatic turnaround in their financials over the last year or so.
Right, a turnaround. When you say that, we should probably dig into what exactly is driving that. Because, a lot of these crypto infrastructure plays, historically, they struggle to get from just potential to actual profit.
Yeah, that's fair.
What specific numbers are showing this shift for Bullish?
Well, it's not subtle. It's a really significant change. The sources are pointing to really massive revenue growth.
Okay. Specifically, they mention a 79.51% jump in revenue for 2024. That brought them to $158.48 million.
Wow, nearly 80%.
Exactly. That kind of acceleration suggests their model is, finally clicking and grabbing real market share.
But revenue's one thing. The real kicker is profitability, isn't it? Not just growing the top line.
Precisely.
And their Q2 2025 earnings, that seemed to be the moment the market really sat up and noticed. Stock jumped nearly 8% that day.
That was the confirmation. It showed they weren't just, building things anymore. They're running operations at an industrial scale now.
Industrial scale.
Yes, although we need to address something odd in the data we processed here. One report mentioned Q2 2025 activity, including revenue topping $250 billion.
Wait, $250 billion in revenue with a market cap under $8 billion. That doesn't track.
No, it almost certainly doesn't. Given their market cap is, around $7.87 billion now. It's almost certainly an error in that specific source.
Yeah.
It must be referring to trading volume handled, not actual company revenue.
Okay, that makes way more sense. Volume, not revenue. Right, we have to be critical of the source data, always. But the core point holds. The scale of activity is massive, even if the actual revenue is much, much smaller. Yeah. And crucially, that revenue is now profitable.
That's a really important distinction. Can't build a case on a number that looks like a typo.
Yeah.
But okay, profitability is real. That helps justify the market cap. Stepping back, though, what financial gaps are still there? What should listeners be aware of?
Well, the top-line growth and the profit swing are great, definitely. But they're still new-ish as a public company, relatively speaking.
Sure.
So a really full financial picture, that still needs a deeper dive into the latest SEC filings. We need confirmation on their debt levels specifically. And maybe most importantly for a growth story, free cash flow generation.
Right. Revenue's the engine, profit's the fuel, but how's the chassis? Is it overloaded with debt?
Exactly. And right now, visibility on that debt structure, it's somewhat limited in the readily available stuff. So there's an unknown there.
Okay, so a structural risk to keep an eye on. They seem to have cracked the revenue code, but the balance sheet needs scrutiny. Let's pivot then. Are their actual services, their core business, unique enough to maybe justify taking on that bit of financial uncertainty? Because they don't position themselves like a Coinbase or a Binance.
Yeah, and this is where their story gets really interesting, I think. It's about their infrastructure and their competitive edge. They run this digital assets exchange, but it integrates two market mechanisms that are usually kept separate.
And that combination, that's the hook for the big players, the institutions.
That's exactly it. They merge a central limit order book, the standard thing you see in traditional stock markets for deep, transparent pricing,
right,
with automated market-making technology, the AMM stuff, common in DeFi.
Okay, so best of both worlds.
Kind of.
Yeah.
The fusion creates really deep liquidity and tighter spreads. And for institutional investors, that's critical. They need certainty they can execute large orders without moving the price too much against them.
Makes sense. Retail might put up with a thin order book, but a big fund just can't risk that slippage. So that structure, CLOB plus AMM, it solves a key problem for big money.
It does. It tackles liquidity fragmentation head-on, makes them instantly more attractive to that sophisticated capital.
And it's not just trading, is it?
No, and that's smart strategy. They've diversified. They also offer market data, indices services, valuable stuff.
So sticky revenue streams beyond just transaction fees.
Right. It helps position them more as core infrastructure for the regulated digital asset world, less reliant on just trading frenzy.
Which brings us neatly to the big catalysts everyone's been talking about, regulatory approvals.
Yeah.
These seem to be the main drivers behind the recent investor excitement and those higher price targets.
Absolutely. For institutions, regulation isn't a hurdle, it's the entry ticket. It's what lets them allocate serious capital. And the huge news back in October 2025 was them securing the New York DFS BIT license.
Okay, tell us why that specific license, the BIT license, is such a big deal.
Well, the New York Department of Financial Services, the DFS, it's seen globally as like the gold standard for financial regulation, not just in the US. Getting that license basically screams, we are fully compliant, ready for prime time.
So it unlocks the U.S. market.
It's pivotal for U.S. entry, yes. It lets them offer spot trading and custody to institutions, sophisticated traders right there in New York State. And they plan to activate that in Q4 2025.
Q4, so very soon. Direct access to Wall Street money, essentially.
Potentially, yes, the largest pool of traditional financial capital. But they didn't stop there. Their regulatory team was clearly working overtime because almost simultaneously, they announced global expansion too. They got the MiCAR license from BaFin in Germany.
MiCAR. That's the EU-wide one, right?
That's the one, markets in crypto assets regulation. It's like a financial passport across the entire European Union.
Wow. So New York and the whole EU basically at the same time.
Pretty much. It's a massive regulatory one-two punch, a huge strategic win, getting compliant coverage in two of the world's biggest economic zones like that.
And they didn't waste any time leveraging that. October 8th, they launched crypto options trading. And they had partners lined up already.
Yes, backed by partnerships with 13 major trading firms right at launch. We're talking big names. Galaxy, Flow Traders, FalconX.
Getting 14 firms like that on board day one, that's a serious vote of confidence.
It really is. Shows trust in their tech and their regulatory standing. And importantly, it opens up a whole new revenue stream beyond spot trading. Derivatives usually mean better margins too.
Okay, so regulations unlocked, new products launching. If we connect that back to their actual operations, the scale seems to back this up. This isn't a small operation anymore.
Oh, definitely not. The numbers are pretty clear. Trading volume hit $179.6 billion just in September 2025.
$180 billion in 1 month.
Yeah. Average daily volume was just under $2 billion, $1.974 billion. And cumulatively, since they really got going in late 2021, they've handled over $1.5 trillion in trades.
$1.5 trillion.
Yeah.
Okay. That volume definitely puts them in the top tier for Bitcoin and Ethereum spot trading.
For sure. And that's why the market's reacting. Analysts are mostly sticking with a buy rating. Citigroup, for instance, bumped their price target up to $77 from $70.
$77. Suggesting almost, what, 40% upside from where it's been trading recently?
Roughly, yeah. That reflects that new confidence from the regulatory wins and the profitability.
And management's guidance seems to support that optimism.
It does. Their Q3 2025 outlook was strong. They projected adjusted revenue between $69 and $76 million and adjusted EBITDA between $25 and $28 million.
So it's still scaling, still profitable, heading into Q4 when that U.S. license kicks in.
Exactly. It doesn't look like things are slowing down.
All right, now we have to pour a little cold water. Necessary balance. The headlines are great, but what are the risks? What's the main financial concern right now, especially with this fast growth?
The main thing analysts pointed out, particularly around the Q2 report, was leverage.
Ah, the debt question again.
Yes, a high leverage ratio is noted. Now, growing this fast, making these big regulatory plays, that costs money, requires capital. But because the specific details on their debt structure, how much, what kind, aren't super clear from the easily available info, well, investors need to know that the success of this expansion sort of depends on managing that debt load effectively, especially if interest rates are tricky.
Okay, leverage risk.
Yeah.
And then there's just the market itself, right? This is still crypto adjacent.
Absolutely. It's highly correlated with the broader crypto market cycle, and we all know how volatile that can be.
Yeah. The 52-week range you mentioned earlier, $47.88 to $118, that says it all. This is not a stock you just buy and forget about.
Definitely not. You have to watch broader crypto sentiment constantly because it will impact infrastructure players like Bullish.
So technically speaking, what are traders looking for?
Well, given that wide volatile range, to really confirm this upward trend isn't just hype, you'd want to see the stock consistently trading above its key moving averages, both the 50-day and the 200-day.
Holding above those levels shows underlying strength.
Right. If it can build and hold a base, say, above that $50 to $60 area in the short term, that would suggest the bullish momentum is more structural, less just reacting to news.
Okay, so it feels like there are two layers here. There's a short-term case, driven by Q3 earnings coming up, and that U.S. market entry catalyst in Q4.
Yes.
And then there's the longer-term story, built on their unique tech, those big regulatory wins in the U.S. and EU, positioning them for institutional growth.
I think that captures the current situation really well. And looking even further out beyond the next quarter or two, there's already a lot of chatter, speculation really, about what Bullish might do next to cement that institutional leadership.
What are analysts whispering about?
Well, first, now that they have the New York license, the thinking is they'll probably go after licenses in other key U.S. states, broaden that footprint beyond just NY.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
State by state can be a slog, but necessary.
Right.
What else?
Second, given how hard they've focused on being compliant and regulated, strategic partnerships seem very likely. Think traditional financial institutions, big banks maybe, looking for a regulated way to offer crypto exposure to their own clients.
That would be huge. A major bank essentially saying, we trust your platform, your compliance, enough to plug our clients into it. That's the ultimate stamp of approval.
It really is. And the third thing people expect is an expansion of their capital efficiency tools. Specifically, building out their margin trading using something called portfolio margining.
Portfolio margining. Quickly, what's the benefit of that for their target users?
Right. So instead of calculating margin needed for each trade separately, portfolio margining looks at the total risk across a trader's entire portfolio, longs, shorts, options, everything.
Okay.
This usually means sophisticated traders can post less collateral overall for the same amount of market exposure because offsetting positions are factored in. It frees up their capital.
Which is a massive draw for big, sophisticated trading firms. Capital efficiency is king.
Exactly. It makes the platform much more attractive for heavy users. So pulling it all together, the evidence really points to Bullish being at this crucial moment. It's driven by those huge regulatory wins opening up major markets and the fact that they're actually making money now, operationally profitable.
Yeah.
That combination really positions them for a faster institutional adoption, maybe faster than many competitors can manage.
So the key thing to watch, really, is execution. How quickly can they turn those brand new U.S. and EU licenses into real, measurable institutional trading volume over the next, say, 3 to 6 months?
That's the acid test.
That's what will really validate whether that $77 price target from Citi or even higher is realistic. But here's the bigger question, maybe for you, the listener, to think about. If Bullish pulls this off, they integrate portfolio margining successfully, they land a major bank partnership, does it stop being just a crypto exchange investment? Does it become something more like a regulated financial infrastructure utility? And if it does, what kind of valuation would that command?